Earth is the only known planet in the galaxy to support life.
Go underground and hopefully come out.
This here is a wood spider.
Well, hello and welcome to our first Q&A session, a quiz session. I'm Erfan Firouzi and we are here on this Earth Day. So happy Earth Day as well. And with me is Zayaan Qureshi. Zayaan Qureshi, please introduce yourself.
I am Zayaan Qureshi. I'm 14 years old and I always had a love for animals. But just recently I have taken a deeper look into the natural world and I'd love to explore more of the amazing beauty of nature.
And of course, Zayaan is among the founders with myself of the Wildlife Focus. And we'll get to back very soon. So we are going to speak about questions, main questions that are being asked us. But before we get to that point, let's first understand why are we, all around the world celebrating Earth Day? Why are we having this unique day today? What is the importance of biodiversity and nature? Of course, as we know it, nature is everything that is, exists in a natural way and is linked with different ways. Where it's decay of the animals and everything is recycled there, everything is reused. And I think the main importance of the natural world is that it sustains life. It sustains life of all forms, including human beings. Human beings themselves depend on nature very much for everything that we do. From the food we eat, to the air we breathe, to the water we drink, all of our actions depend on nature. Now, of course, the nature also depends on its biodiversity. The biodiversity is among the most powerful forces in the natural world. And of course, it has got many different links. Apart from the biodiversity, we have got the most powerful source, that is also the sun, all of which act together to help our unique planet function. Now, talking about biodiversity, biodiversity is the variety of life on Earth, the biological diversity. And if you look at the natural world, let's say an ecosystem, for example, if you look at that, we can understand and we can see that they are surrounded with life. And without the biodiversity, plants and fungi, animals, all these things, the ecosystem itself cannot thrive. And we are putting our biodiversity at risk with many different actions, with climate change, poaching, overfishing, and much more, which Zayaan will get into more of detail. So biodiversity is really important. Biodiversity means, plants and animals and all these creatures. And with their help, we can fight against the environmental problems, climate change, plastic pollution, and the sustainability. Because the more biodiverse our planet, the healthier it is. And of course, the easier we can fight against climate change. Now, speaking about nature, I've been researching on animals and plants for the past 6 years. And I've got some specimens as well that I'll be sharing with you after some time. So, looking at nature, people always ask me a very common question. What was your interest at first when you came in the field? And the question is always simple. I tell them that since our childhood, in our childhood, we all of us love the natural world. And the main question that appears is that why it's not that why I love nature. It is why that we have lost that feeling and that love, and we don't care about nature at all. Now, but that doesn't mean that, let's say, if we are living in civilized areas, living in cities, far away from the natural world, we are not linked with it. The natural world links with us in every different way. You know, it touches us in every single way. And the natural world is there on our doorsteps. It's on our in our homes, and there are animals everywhere. So it's not that how I have been interested to join the natural world. It is about how we have lost that important feeling with nature. And the second point is, if I want to get to that question, of course, that how I was inspired to speak about nature. It is a very long story. I was interested in nature from, of course, the very childhood. I used to be a child. All my toys used to be animals or plants, and I used to make for myself zoos and jungles. And I've got, for example, if you can see books also here about animals too. And apart from that, I think the main inspiration that made me want to take action, made me want to, change the world, make the world understand about the natural world, is that the damage I saw that people are having in the natural world. And that includes, for example, the areas near to my house. I'm seeing people, plucking out jellyfishes from the oceans, throwing them outside because of fear of being stung. Overfishing, the destruction of habitats that I've seen, and also the populations of animals, such as the most common, the rhinoceros beetles, that their population is, going down, their size is decreasing, their size of their horns is decreasing. So all these things inspired me to take action. And apart from that, I was mainly inspired by Sir David Attenborough. The amazing work he does, the feeling he puts in his work is important, because of course, if we don't understand the natural world, we can never save it. Because first comes understanding. By understanding, we'll understand why to care, and when we care, we can save our planet. The next common asked question that people ask me is that you take your friends or relatives or different people to areas where they go and catch lizards or animals. Where do you find these animals? And that's a question which I rather laugh at it, because the natural world surrounds us all. If given the chance, the natural world can recover in the most extraordinary way. But again, the chance needs to be given before it gets too late. And nature is all around us. It is right on our faces as face mites. I suppose I've heard it. Outside in parks, we may not know it, but birds are hunting there, spiders, beetles, and of course everywhere, moths and butterflies. All of them are animals, and if there are a particular species in your area, let's say flies or mosquitoes, there must be a creature that is there that feeds on it. But of course, due to the noise pollution people create, such as the ones by cars and such, you may not see, let's say, bats in your areas, but they are there. They may come out at night when there's not much noise, but they are there. Even lizards also, when there are mosquitoes and flies, the lizards that prey on them are also there. But due to human beings going and catching them and scaring them with torches and all these things, as soon as they see a human, they just go and hide. But the natural world is really unique. It surrounds us all. It's everywhere. We just have to understand where to look for it, protect it, and understand it. Because once we understand how to protect it, the natural world will replenish in extraordinary powers. And of course, I've seen that myself. I've got some live specimens here: carcass beetles, earwigs, geckos, and all these things I've already seen on my social media stories about all these animals that I've got. So each of them, when I gave them the chance to recover, of course all of them were sick when I found them. They recovered in the most almost extraordinary way. But again, we have to understand to live with nature rather than against it. We have to understand that whatever we must do, we must link it with nature. Everything that we do must, go back to nature. It must not, destroy nature. The same way, let's say, a bone, for example, let's say the Arabian gazelle skull behind me. The way it decomposes in its environment and the way it helps the environment is truly inspiring. Of course, the Arabian gazelle itself, feeds on different plants there, like golf trees and such, keeping them short and leaving a pathway in which different animals can rest and different animals can enjoy the shade. And apart from that, when they die, their bodies get absorbed into the environment. Carcass beetles swarm them, and after a very long time, when their bones are baked, their bones itself turns into sand. So you can see that how everything goes back to nature. But for us, let's say for plastic pollution, it never goes away. Whatever we put in the oceans, whatever we put in the natural world, it comes back to us. And it's not that, okay, we are throwing it in nature and we are not near to nature, it doesn't affect us. Plastic pollution is the worst among all the pollutions, let's say, because scientists believe that by 2050 there could be more plastic than fish in the oceans, and that's a warning for us. We may not all know it, but maybe you or even I have got microplastic in us. Where does the microplastic come from? It comes from the fish that we eat. Plastic never goes away. Once it ends up in the oceans, it is eaten by different creatures, turtles, um, many creatures, a whole diversity of creatures. And once they die, suffocate from the plastic, that again, the whole animal decays. But that very plastic is again released into the atmosphere, released into the oceans, and so again is eaten by another fish. After a very long time, it turns into microplastic, small pieces, you know, and that comes back to us. It's not like the story of the Arabian gazelle. It comes back to us. So we must understand that we must, live with nature, because nature is not extraordinary. It supports our very lives. It supports our very lives, and we depend on it more than anything else. Now I pass it on to Zayaan to tell us exactly why, what are the problems that our planet faces, and what
I'm
exactly
here.
can we do to save it.
So I'm here to speak about why Earth is important to us, and how can we save it, and what's the problems it's facing. So one of the first problems that Earth is facing is biodiversity loss. It's creating a huge impact to Earth, and it's because of us humans, which is actually pretty sad. And the loss of biodiversity is destroying the whole ecosystem and can harm us as well. It won't just harm the animal species but us as well. But there are some ways in which we can prevent it. For example, by recycling, by not polluting much and by recycling items, it won't harm the animals as they won't consume the waste. And by being sustainable will also help us. Another huge problem, as Erfan said, is plastic pollution. It has affected millions of marine animals and the oceans as well. The plastic bag or bottle or any item will turn into microplastics, and then the fish will eat the microplastics, and us humans consume the fish. So basically, the fish which ate the plastic which we threw in the ocean is coming back to us in our belly. And basically, the plastic in our own stomach is harmful not towards us but towards the fish as well. Plastic takes 450 years to decompose, according to recent studies. And the fish that have plastic in them will shorten their lifespan and will die, and then the other marine animals will feed off the fish or any marine animal. Then they'll have the microplastics in them, and the cycle keeps going, and this leads to biodiversity loss. The solution for this is to completely ban plastic from your life. Even if you see one plastic bottle or bag or whatever plastic item it is in the beach, and you just pick it up and simply chuck it in the bin, it will help lots of animals. That means you have saved at least tens of animals, 10 animals in the ocean. So if you see anyone throwing plastic, please just tell them that plastic pollution is not good towards us humans and the biodiversity in the ocean. Another one is deforestation. Loss of trees and other vegetation can cause climate change, desertification, soil erosion, fewer crops, flooding, increased greenhouse gases, and a host of problems for us, us humans. You can stop deforestation by using eco-friendly products, eating sustainable foods, recycling more, and conserving water and energy, which can help to completely stop deforestation. Now, one question which I always get: how were you interested in wildlife, and what can we do to save it? So I said these all solutions must apply, and we can save nature and wildlife and the earth. And what inspired me to wildlife is not the wildlife itself, but the thought, as it once said, the thought or the importance of it. So, yeah. So I pass it on to Erfan now.
Thank you very much, Zayaan. Really great to hear what you're speaking about. So, talking about plastic pollution that you spoke earlier, what do you think that we can do to save the planet against plastic pollution? And of course, about the other threats that our planet faces. Zayaan, can you hear me?
Yes, say again.
I was asking you, you spoke about plastic pollution, about all the threats that our planet and the animals there faces. So have you got any idea about the dangers of plastic and all these things, and what can we do to avoid plastic in our lives and save our oceans?
Number one, we must completely ban plastic. Most countries have to ban plastic from all the citizens' life, and then yeah, we will not use plastic much, which will help animals and us. That way, we will be more sustainable towards wildlife.
I completely agree with you, but of course, for the people who are here and the people who are be listening to this later, you may ask, why do animals eat plastic in the first place? Is it that they think it's food, or it's something like that? But it's not actually that's not the case. When animals eat plastic, it's a whole long story behind it. When algae grows around plastic, of course, the krill there, these small crustaceans that even whales eat, go and eat that particular algae. And eating that algae, those krill produce a chemical called as the methyl sulfide, and that attracts many animals, from fishes to turtles to the albatrosses, birds, seabirds, and all these things. And what happens there is, instead of the animal actually feeding on the krill, the animal itself actually feeds on the plastic. So it's not that animals are dumb that they're eating plastic. It is that the plastic smells like food and doesn't run away. And apart from that, we have seen dolphins as well playing with plastic, and that's also a very dangerous thing. And whales, turtles, many of them, are eating plastic. But apart from plastic, talking about the problems in the oceans, another big threat to the oceans is ghost nets. When they are left in the oceans, they can drag many species to the brink of extinction. Turtles, swordfishes, sharks, all of them get trapped in that ghost gear, and that also has having a devastating impact. It is that our teeth is not like it's unlike this Arabian gazelle. It's not the teeth of a herbivore creature, right? It's not the teeth of this, if you can see it. It's not the teeth of this creature. It is not the teeth of a lion. It is the teeth of an omnivore, a teeth of a creature such as, let's say, a chimpanzee or such. So we are not meant to only eat meat or to eat plants. But of course, it doesn't mean that we have to eat everything that comes in our path as well. Everything that is good to eat, we can eat. But of course, a more plant-based diet is a much, much, much more healthier diet. Because, if we talk about meat, red meat especially, acres of forests in Brazil and different places are cleared to make farmland for beef and lamb and all these creatures. And this has led right now to a dramatic portion of mammals on Earth to be about humans and their livestock. And I mean by that portion, 96% of the mammals on our planet today are us and the livestock that they are domesticated. And the main factor is that 70% of all birds are that they have domesticated, and include, let's say, chickens or bargigers and all these creatures. And apart from that, Zayaan, what can you say about invasive species? Let's say I've got a pet and I release it into the wild.
Invasive species are mostly almost anywhere now, especially in Florida. There are many invasive species. For example, the chameleon. So instead of euthanizing the chameleon itself, we can bring it as in sanctuaries or or we can keep them in rehabilitation centers, and yeah.
Exactly. So as Zayaan spoke, there are many invasive species going on across the world. Whether it's in, let's say, Australia, carps, for example, or koi fishes and such. It's having a devastating impact on the planet. A very powerful one. That includes invasive species. Not only include animals and plants, but it includes fungi and other creatures too. For example, the species of toad. I don't have the main country in mind. Is invasive species in Australia.
The cane toad.
Repeat?
The cane toad, right?
Exactly, the cane toad. And that's having a devastating impact on the environment. Australia is a country biodiverse. We know of it about kangaroos and koalas and all these exotic creatures. And they're home to crocodiles and alligators, snakes and all these things. But the introduction of the cane toad brought a whole diversity of problems. Crocodiles dying, alligators as well, snakes, fishes, carnivorous fishes. All these things, when they feed on those cane toads, because cane toads on their poison glands, they produce nasty poison that suffocates their predators, and that is killing many creatures over there. But there are creatures that are adapting, and they are smart. And for example, it is believed that because of the many elder fishes are dying due to cane toads, the juveniles are learning not to go near to the tadpoles or the cane toads themselves. And again, the same thing is going on with alligators too. They're juvenile, they baby alligators are actually learning not to avoid all these cane toads. And apart from that, they've got invasive plants as well. And that includes, let's say, any plant that is not native. Let's say in the UAE, guava trees are not invasive trees; they're local trees. But again, introduction of, let's say, budgerigars and different animals, because of course people must not just go and buy their pets. They should not go, okay, I love this pet, so I'm going to buy it. That's not the case at all. You have to understand that before you get an animal, you do perfect research on it. Understand its life cycle, the space required, how big it grows, and all these things. Because people usually, what the case is, they see a beautiful animal, for example, a macaw or a pacu fish, or let's say a red-tailed catfish, and they go and purchase that particular animal. And because they don't know how large it grows and how fast it grows, at the end of the day, they leave it in the nearby lake or nearby pond. And because those fishes are invasive species, they are beyond speech. What happens is that the local species will have to fight for food against. They are not only, let's say, the lionfish in the Pacific Ocean. It is in competition between the consumers and on the local species as well. Because they feed on them, they feed on resources, they feed on the species there, and because they have that perfect environment as invasive species, they breed more quickly than the local species, and also they feed on more resources, on more fishes themselves, and more native species. So talking about the pets, Zayaan, what do you think about the thing that I said about invasive species as per the people that are buying their pets?
Yeah, invasive species come through pet trade. Many people, they buy the pet and then they say we cannot keep it, we cannot take care of it anymore, and then they release it in the wild, which causes invasive species, it invades the whole area where it is. So when a person buys a pet, he has to understand that he has to do full research, and he should have the whole all resources, and he should understand the animal, how to keep it, and then he should buy the pet.
Exactly, I agree with you. Now, Zan, what do you think about climate change? Have you seen yourself, any changes happening into the environment and all these things? What do you think about global warming and climate change?
But climate change, myself, in my experience, I have been on adventures, you could say, to find rhinoceros beetle with you, as you know. So we have seen that there is a huge impact on the population of rhinoceros beetles, to earwigs, to slugs, and many other creatures. Their populations had decreased, and that's because of climate change.
Yes, I exactly agree with you, because I know that it was around 5-6 months back, I believe.
Exactly.
And it is exactly correct, as you said. Insects are mostly affected by climate change. And think of insects, most people will be like, "Oh my God, insects, gross creatures. They are they are not important for us." But indeed, they are very much. And insects, like us human beings, when they have a lot of heat on them, they get heat stroke, and they can kill them. And that include butterflies, bees, and much more diversity of creatures. And it is very important to address climate change as soon as possible. And there are many ways in which we can do. We can have at least no car days in the week. Let's say a day where we spend our time outdoors, in a park or in your balcony, offing all the lights and not driving cars. And apart from that, you can understand to off your lights and off your devices when you don't need them. And yes, so the impacts of climate change on insects is a dramatic one. Bees in return, pollinate a lot of plants, and each plant has its own language, has its own way of attracting its particular pollinators. Some cacti, for example, depend on bats to pollinate them, and some also smell like rotting fruits, their flowers. And the same goes for different species of plants, as Lafracia, which smell like, the dead meat. Plants are really important. Not only they supply us with oxygen, not only with habitats for different creatures, but for the very food we eat. Where does our cucumber or carrots, tomatoes, and all these comes from? It all comes from the insects. If there are no insects to pollinate these plants, we are doomed. Because without plants, without bees themselves, plants cannot survive. And we have to understand of protecting insects. And in that way, it means, of course, there are some insects that are pests, like such as common home cockroaches or flies and mosquitoes. Apart from that, we have to learn to protect those species that are not as pests, which help the environment. Earwigs, spiders, beetles, all these things dramatically help the environment. Like, if you remember, Zayaan, rhinoceros beetles feed on plants, right? So a plant decaying, if the rhinoceros are not there, it'll take much more longer for them to decay. And of course, the leaves themselves, when the leaves falls from the trees in the month of, let's say, autumn and winter, that leaf itself, in the process of decomposing, produce a lot of carbon dioxide. And it is also proven that by recycling those leaves, we can make paper. So when cutting down trees, we can use the leaves that fall from them. And so it is very important. Climate change also having an impact on amphibians. A fungi, secret fungus, is affecting many amphibians of different types. And how it affects those amphibians is truly extraordinary. Because those amphibians, once the fungi comes on them, they lose their ability to absorb nutrients and oxygen and all these nutrients from the water. So it is of having that semi-permeable skin, the skin easily comes off, and that kills them. And talking about climate change, then, what do you think about overfishing, let's say?
Overfishing, when you fish, overfishing basically means when you fish a lot of fishes. So that when you fish unnecessarily, that's the fishes are uselessly dying. So you're basically killing the fishes on purpose, and they are being eaten by us humans, and they are plastic pollution, like there are microplastics in them, as we talked about plastic pollution. And yeah,
I cannot agree with you more, of course. We are catching more fish than we can eat, because fishes, unlike other meaty organism or the, let's say, like chicken or beef, the flesh of a fish and sea animals gets decomposed and gets infected with bacteria very, very fast. And people are catching fishes every single day, huge amounts, tons and tons of fishes. And let's say if you look at the fishes caught, let's say 50 years ago, we can see that the fish caught today, the same species, used to be caught this much in size in olden times. But because you're catching those fishes that are able to breed, we are risking of losing our fish stocks. People are catching all these fishes, right? And then there's not much for them to breed. And people have to understand that they can catch fish sustainably by the demand of their population, not to overfish, that most of it will end up being thrown away, decomposed, or spoiled. But catch the right amount of fish, the right age of fish, and the right size. Small fishes such as this won't cover any of the nutrients that we need. So we have to let fishes be where they are and catch them on the right age after they are bred, so they can spread all around. And we can actually open marine reserves, protect the areas in marine life that can help sharks, help different species recover. And then talking about all these problems, I'm going to ask you about the last point, then you can speak about anything which you like. What do you think about poaching of rhino beetle, rhinoceros horns, which is the northern white rhino, or pangolins and all these creatures? What do you think about poaching?
Pangolins and rhinos horns have a a nutrient called keratin, which can be found in our fingernails and hair. So basically, when someone chainsaws the rhino's horn, it kills the rhino and is also useless to us because it doesn't help us in any way. Same for pangolins, their shells are made up of keratin. So we are killing the pangolin and making the species extinct as well as the rhinos, and it does not help us in any way. Same for Siberian tigers. They are being killed for the meat, for expensive meat and for medicine, which are once again no use to us.
Exactly. The rhino horns being so expensive, the pangolins also being the most trafficked animal, doesn't have any use of medicine. They are the same materials that our fingernails are made of. If it was like this, people would ask us, have a jar, correct your fingernails in it so we can make medicine out of them. That's impossible. There's no any proven, medicine value. But because of money, those animals are dying. Already, the northern white rhino, I believe it was, that is going extinct. There are only 2 that remain. That's dangerous. Many fishes are going, many different species of animals are going extinct due to human activities. That include the Caspian tiger, the golden toad, bowhead guitar fish. All these things are going extinct to human beings. We have to understand how to save them. Saving them is our duty, because they were here for a very long time. We just appeared on Earth not long ago, and we need them to survive. Polar bears in different parts of the world, we need them. And Antarctica itself is a very important part on Earth. Antarctica reflects the heat and light that comes to the Earth. So the larger the ice area of the Antarctica, the easier it is for it to reflect the heat and light that comes on our planet, the radiation that comes. But now due to climate change, greenhouse gases, things are going wrong. But again, we can change it. Planting more trees. That's what the aim of the wildlife focus is. Planting more trees, raising fund to plant trees. And that we're going to do it pretty soon. Now, we spoke about the most important of all these environmental problems. But again, it's not that we cannot take action. It's not that there's no hope. Zayaan and me ourselves have seen that if we join our hands together, we can help save our planet. We can become the heroes of our own planet. What do you think, Zayaan?
If we help our planet, we can be heroes of our planet, as you said. We can save Earth still. It's not the end. There's still a chance Earth can survive. And Earth needs our help.
Exactly, by planting more trees, eating more plant-based diets, helping the natural world, helping restore it, spending your time in the natural world, using less fossil fuels will help save our planet. It is not too late. Right today, you all can stop using plastic. Plastic is nothing. It affects us badly as well. You can buy those, the reusable plastic bottles in which you can use again and again and again. And again, you can also have grocery bags made out of clothing that you don't need, which you can again use again and again. It won't end up in the nature. And once again, now we can get back to the questions that our audience gave out here. So you can begin asking your questions.
Okay, I have a question. Why do koalas sleep so much?
That's indeed a very question. Zayaan, would you like to answer or should I?
Yes, I can answer. So koalas eat, their diet is mainly eucalyptus leaves, which have no energy at all. And by sleeping, they can make up the energy by and eating eucalyptus leaves as well. So that's what makes koalas sleep almost the whole day.
Exactly. Eucalyptus leaves, they are very, very hard to digest. And, it won't provide that much of energy that, let's say, you are surviving with, let's say, the rice that you eat or the chicken that we eat. It's all about that. It takes a very long time for them to digest that eucalyptus leaves, and that won't give them enough energy. So that's why they spend most of their time eating and sleeping. Again, the same thing is for sloths as well. Because they're eating leaves, and leaves are pretty hard to digest because of their fibers. They sleep more than they are awake. But again, it's of course one of the most important things that helps them, avoid predators. They live above trees. Very easy to see them by predators. But because of the lack of movement and sleeping, due to of course the leaves again that they eat, they can easily stay, away from the predator's eyesight for a very long time.
Also, I have another question. What's the most venomous snake on planet Earth?
Zayaan, would you like to answer this?
You can go ahead and answer this one.
So, talking about venomous snakes, what is it that makes snakes venomous? Of course, it's a protein that helps them in killing humans or killing different creatures. But of course, they don't just intentionally come and bite human beings. They mostly run until they are trapped. But again, it breaks down white blood cells. The venom that is in the snakes breaks down white and red blood cells, making it, avoiding it to clot. And that's which kills it. It makes a clot in the heart and heart attack and different problems. So the most venomous snake, as you asked, is the inland taipan. And it is considered the most venomous snake in the world. And it's pretty cool, right? And it is pretty extraordinary. But again, you won't be, tagged or bitten by any snake until you're not too close and you appreciate them from a safe distance. So yes, Hamdan, as I mentioned earlier, snake venom is pretty powerful. It contains complex mixtures of enzymes and proteins of various sizes, and then include amines, lipids, nucleosides, and carbohydrates. And the venom contains various metal ions that are, presumed to act as, cofactors and include sodium or calcium, potassium, magnesium, and zinc. And it's pretty extraordinary, that such things can easily kill a human being or indeed even larger creatures. So Ethan, you can ask your next question.
Okay, I have another question. I've seen you've catch many extraordinary creatures in your channel. So, what's the most rarest species of an animal you've ever catched or caught?
Rarest species of animal I ever caught. Let's have Zayaan answer first until I
That's
think.
a tough question. That's actually a good question.
No, Zayaan, what do you think? What is the rarest animal you have seen or caught?
Might be the orchid skimmer, but I'm not quite sure if it's the rarest.
Very well. So, I think of the rarest. You said I've caught, right? Or you said I've preserved, or you said I've seen.
What?
Caught. Very well. I think the hardest one was, of course, finding the Arabian gazelle skull. This one. This was the hardest, and I caught. I think around I found it December 11, 2020. But I think the rarest that made me jump out of my skin, let's say, was the eagle skull. I think so, because the eagle itself is linked, I think, vulnerable in different areas, and is pretty rare. It's a greater spotted eagle, and pretty cool. So I think this one is the rarest creatures that I found. And again, even this also is the rarest. It's a coral reef, and so yeah, it's a rare find because no one goes diving and bring out bleached coral reef. The coral is, of course, the species. It is the symmetrical brain coral. It was found January 3rd, 2020. So yes. Now, Zayaan, what do you think about snake venom? He brought the idea of snake venom. It's pretty interesting. What do you think of snake venom?
A snake venom is something that can flush your blood immediately, depending on the species. So if the snake bites you, you have to rush to the hospital and take all precautions.
Exactly, very well. But people are now here interested. What should I do when I'm bitten by a snake? I've not been bitten by a snake so far, and hopefully I will not get bitten. But yeah, so of course the way venom acts on the body is, of course, it clots the blood, as you said, and the venom actually punches holes in blood vessels, causing them to leak, and it's pretty extraordinary, and there is nothing left for the stem to flow, and the patient or in the prey bleeds to death. And other venoms can increase blood pressure or decrease blood pressure, preventing breathing or even creating it, So yeah, snake venom is a pretty dangerous thing. So if you see a snake, watch it from a safe distance, avoid it. And that's the case for every animal. Yes, Amnam, what's your next question?
I've seen the gazelle skull and the eagle, so I was wondering, where did you find it?
That's a very nice question to ask. People think of, I of course live in the UAE, same as for Zayaan as well. And people think of UAE as a desert, that it doesn't contain any life. But UAE itself is filled with a diversity of life, diversity of places. I found both of the skulls, the eagle skull I only found, but the Arabian gazelle, its whole body was there. I found in Al Qudra lakes. It is a man-made lake, that people that they are made to, inspire ecotourism, to introduce ecotourism, and it's a pretty extraordinary place. One of my favorite places in the world and in the UAE itself. And it's filled with many different animals. Going there as a visitor, you may not stay there till night, or you may not go exploring like the same way me or Zayaan does to do particular research. But it's filled with many creatures: owls, geese, flamingos, ducks, gazelles, hedgehogs. I've seen hedgehogs myself there, the utopian hedgehog. Beetles of all different types: darkling beetles, churchyard beetles, rack beetles, and of course a whole diversity of beetles. Bees, yellow jackets, spiders, and let's say the camel spider, for example. Different species of fishes, koi fishes, and pretty extraordinary diversity of life. And think of that, you may see you may not see eagle, over there, because eagles are very sneaky animals. They are not found near human populated areas. But it's pretty surprising. I thought first this, right, was a falcon skull. And Zayaan as well remembers, I asked him, Zayaan, is this a falcon skull? He said, yes, it is. But going through the structure of the falcon's head, I saw that, okay, falcon's head is much more rounded, much more chubby looking. But in this one is much more, elongated. So it must be a vulture, or it must be an eagle. And I checked the species of eagles that was found in the way, looking at the only proof I had was the beak color. And the closest related species that I found was the greatest spotted eagle. So that's the whole story of it. And I found it on around October 29, 2020. That's not long ago, that's not even 1 year. And again, if I would have left this in the environment, it would have been, eaten by cactus beetles and recycled back into the environment.
Yes, and I have a final question. What species of the gazelle or the eagle was it?
Repeat your question.
What species of the eagle was it?
That's very. Zayaan, do you know what the species it is? Do you know the scientific name?
I don't know the scientific name, but I know it's a greater spotted eagle.
Very well. I also don't know the scientific name by heart, but then I have to try to. Very well. It is called Aquila claga, right? Or people call it clagat claga. Very, very strange name for a scientific name of a bird. And the Arabian gazelle, we have got the sand gazelle as well as the Arabian gazelle, but this one is the Arabian gazelle. This is the only, I think, the animal that I've got that I know its scientific name is the Gazella arabica. So any other questions you have got about nature, about climate change, about what we can do to save Earth? Any questions that you have got to ask?
Is there a most poisonous fish?
Zayaan, what do you think of that?
There are many poisonous fishes, but then but you cannot say what the most poisonous. You can name the species of this poisonous one, but there's no scientific evidence of the most poisonous fish.
That's also correct. That's also indeed correct. Because first of all, poison is different than venom, right? Poison is usually, is a toxin that gets into the body via it's swallowing, inhaling, or let's say absorption to the skin. But a venom is much more of a specialized type of poison that has evolved, for a specific purpose. It's actively, injected via a bite or sting. So you can say a venom and a poison is much more different, So we can say we have got a fish that is the most venomous, again because it is injected by stinging or biting, So it's the most venomous fish. So and it is the reef stonefish. I've not seen one myself at all, but they are available. Let's say in the Dubai Aquarium in the Burj Khalifa, you can see them. The scorpion fish is there as well, and it has a remarkable ability, to camouflage itself amongst the coral and the rocks around, and they've got pretty beautiful shapes. Like they look exactly like a rock, and they can spend pretty huge amounts out of water. Maybe I think it was 24 hours they can spend out of water for a fish. And it is of course not a prey, but an ambush predator. It swallows its prey whole, right? So let's say, unfortunately I don't have a fish here, but let's say if this is a fish, it will swallow it whole. So they're pretty extraordinary animals. And they don't bite. Their bite is not venomous. It's what lies on their dorsal fins that is deadly. Same like lionfishes, for example. Now, it really swings. It's basically, again, animals are not there. They're not out there to bite you or sting you. I think you're annoying them a lot that they're coming to do that. But then usually, like they swim away when they're disturbed. But then if they are disturbed, there are 13 venomous spines along its back. And usually this happens when a person is walking along rocks, walking around coral reefs and these areas. And once you step on that fish, a huge amount of venom is injected in your feet via the slippers. They say usually you wear proper covering when you're moving in a rocky area and coral reefs, because everything which is beautiful can be deadly too. So yeah, this is the reef stonefish.
And by its name stonefish, you can tell that it camouflages really well with rocks or other stones. So they are easily mistaken for rocks, and then they are stepped on, and then they inject venom through the shoes or slippers or whatever the person is wearing, and it hurts the person and injects venom in them, and they need to rush to the hospital. And
Exactly. One example includes the pufferfish that I've got here,
I
right?
was about to say that I see a porcupine fish behind you. Can you explain a bit about it?
Exactly. So porcupine fish is this one. This one is a long spine porcupine fish, Didin holactis, right? And I didn't collect this one myself. I received it from someone on April 18th. The person received this April 18th, 1998. That's a long time. And what happens to these fishes is that their spines, people as believe it's not poisonous. It's just bone. But imagine, Zayaan, Hamdan, and the audience, being a predator, biting on the thing, it's a fish, and it blows up in the mouth. So that's going to be painful. And if the spines don't work, it can be many different. It can affect the body in many different ways. It has got, I think, its liver, I believe, it's a poisonous part. That's even when the chefs are preparing power fishes, they are preparing with extra care, because if they forget to remove a small piece of that particular organ, death is there. And of course, again, I don't ask people. The main theme of this quiz is to people ask their questions about nature, about what they think of the natural world and everything. I don't want people to go and catch animals, to just take videos of them, disturb animals, preserve animals. I don't want that at all. I want you to understand about the natural world. I want you to get close to it, in a safe way, and in a way that you can protect it. Any other questions?
I have one last and final question. How can we stop global warming or climate change?
I think Zain, you can answer this.
You can go ahead on this one.
Okay, can you repeat your question, Hamdan?
How can we stop global warming or climate change?
That was a very good question. We cannot completely stop climate change. We cannot completely stop global warming, but we can slow it down. Climate change, of course, you remember, Zayan, we made some videos and some events regarding climate change and global warming last year. It's not that, okay, global warming is only happening today. It has been happening, during the ice age, the time of dinosaurs. This happened many times, and it has driven many species towards extinction. There have been 5 main extinctions on Earth, and right now we are on the 6th mass extinction. And talking about how we can stop global warming and climate change is, before understand we cannot do anything, we have to understand about the natural world, and that is the basic step we all can take. Basic step in which all of us can take. Because once we understand about how the natural world works, why is it important, we will care about it eventually. And once that care is given, we'll go do some research. And there are many ways in which you can stop global warming. Eating more plants, because there are acres of trees cut down due to creating farmland for beef and lamb and all these things. And apart from that, planting more trees, planting any type of tree, that lives long, is hardy, and produces a lot of oxygen. Spending more time in the natural world, because that means you're taking your family and friends away from the day-to-day life into the natural world, where there is no Wi-Fi, where there is no social media, there's no light, there is no any human production there. So that means there is no car, there's no fossil fuel being burned, there's no electricity being wasted, and all these things. And I think the best way in which we can help save the environment is avoiding waste. Waste of all types, waste of food, waste of water, waste of energy. If we save all those, plant more trees, and learn about the natural world, try to help it, restore it, participate in ocean cleanups, participate in planting trees, participate in our conservation programs, we can help the planet. Because, Zayaan, you have seen yourself as well. Nature has an extraordinary power of recovery, but the chance must be given on the right time.
There's a question in the chat by Miss Serene. How do you think we can attract more youngsters of your age towards taking up this concern of climate change and other issues that our Mother Earth is facing? So I think how we can attract youngsters, like children or kids, by inspiring them about the fascinating nature and wildlife. How fascinating it is, how we can save wildlife. Why do we save wildlife? And what happens if we save wildlife?
Exactly, that's the main point. And apart from that, I have had online sessions, I have spoken in different areas, in seminars and all these places. There are children, let's say, who are interested in nature. So it's easy, for us to bring them in the field of taking action against climate change and saving our planet. But people who are not interested, we have to show them that this very pufferfish, this very eagle, is important for our daily lives. It is important. It is important to you. It is important for me. And usually the case is that everyone wants to save our planet. People are like, it's too late. People are not interested. Usually when I tell people that, okay, I'm researching on animals and plants, they think as if, it's not important, that I'm just doing this for the sake of, having something to do. But animals are important for our daily lives. We depend on them, insects, all these different creatures. So understanding is the main thing. We have to have more events in schools, more events in the society, in the community, that brings people, especially children and kids, towards nature, towards the natural world, towards animals, towards wildlife. And there are different ways in which you can do that. For example, by having particular spaces in the school where people can, when students and children at young age, year 2, year 1, can go and look at nature, earthworms, beetles, butterflies, and that way they will find the interest on saving animals and understanding about it, and bringing people of my age, or Zayaan's age, in wildlife. I can tell that before, for example, there are many of my friends that there are many people who had no idea about nature, who were not interested in nature, and Zayaan himself loves wildlife from the starting, but he wasn't that much interested into biodiversity. And when I brought my specimens, I joined him in my team and all these things, he became interested. So Zayaan, from that experience, I think you are the best one who you can tell what we can do to inspire people to take action. Because let's say Hamdan here is a person who likes cars. Different people who will be watching these videos will be loving cars as well, will be loving technology, and may have very less interest in wildlife. So what is your message to them? What do you think? How can we inspire people of our ages to take action? You're unmuted, Zayaan.
Sorry about that. I think we can spread awareness by making videos and making articles, and then many other ways are there to inspire people. And as I said, we can tell them how and why. We can take them out, make them explore nature. Now when explore, I don't mean go up to one of the snakes and catch them, but like explore them from a distance, and we can tell them what's the importance of nature.
Exactly, we can have campaigns, ocean cleanups, and all these things that can get people closer to nature. Because once they are close to nature, that's what the question that I'm always asked is, that why are you interested in nature? How was you interested? Is that all of us have the love of nature. Now if I ask you, Zayaan, let's say, if we're all busy with school and all these things, if you say, okay, what would you like to do? You would say that, okay, I would like to have a house in the middle of a forest without any technology or anything. I think that's the question all of us would say. Yeah. So I think that's the main thing. We all love the natural world. But the main important is, how have we lost that love, that interest? again, we can do many things. As you said, campaigns, seminars, especially during the COVID-19, we can have seminars, online classes to introduce people to the wild world. Why are they important? And it is, it has never been more important than it is today, Earth Day, to celebrate the magnificent biodiversity of our planet. And of course, learn how to save it. Because as we saw during the pandemic, many animals across the world use that quiet time, lack of people, lack of pollution, to get closer to our cities, closer to ourselves. And that means we have got a chance in our hands. The way which we can introduce people is making them understand about the natural world, making them interested that the natural world, you are dependent on it. Your very life, your survival is dependent on it. And by making them understand, the care will come by itself. And it is again, by people, of course, won't show that care. Let's say that maybe me and Zayaan are having it. They won't go and publicly research on it. But if we understand that nature is just lovely and we have to protect it, that's enough. What do you think, Zayaan?
Yeah, I think if we know the main point is to protect, love nature, I think we can save Earth. We can save nature, we can save wildlife, we can save brink of extinction of most wildlife species.
So thank you for all of you for joining today. Those who are seeing the videos, it'll be available on the YouTube channel of the Wildlife Focus as well as on Wildverse as well. So you can put your question in the comments and 100% we will reply. And of course, you have to learn that every day is Earth Day. Every day is a great chance to take care of our planet, take care of ourselves, take care of our planet. And by doing that, we can create a world in which we are closer to the natural world, and in which the natural world is closer to us, and in which we have healthier foods, fresh air to breathe, and much more. A magnificent nature and wildlife filled world. So what would you like to say, Zayaan? Your conclusion?
I think in today's lesson, I hope we learn why we should save nature and what happens if we save nature and how do we save nature and Earth. So happy Earth Day to all, and I wish the best for all of you.
Exactly. So once again, thank you for joining us today. Every day is Earth Day. Together we all stand, keeping our planet alive and rewilding our planet. Thank you very much for joining us today. Make sure you have an amazing Earth Day. Make every day Earth Day and take care of your planet.